Hello, I'm Helena Gibson-Moore, a nutrition scientist at the British Nutrition Foundation, and I'm going to talk about how good nutrition in the early years really matters. This talk will briefly discuss why healthy eating is so crucial in the early years and provide an overview of what a healthy diet is for children aged 1 to 4 years old in the UK. So this talk is for anyone with an interest in providing a healthy, balanced diet to children in the early years. I'll just go through the outline of my talk. So to start off, there is a quick quiz, and I'll go through the answers to these at the end. So if you're unsure of any, I will cover the topics in my talk, and the answers will hopefully be clearer afterwards. So I'll cover why healthy eating is important for this age group, including energy and nutrient requirements. And I'll talk about what a healthy diet is, including healthy drinks, and then briefly cover physical activity. And then I'll go through the answers to the quiz. So the 4 questions are: young children should only have whole grain varieties of starchy foods. There are no limits on how much oily fish young children can consume. Children should have a sugar-free diet. Dried fruit is a healthy snack and can be eaten any time of the day. So why is healthy eating in young children important? Well, throughout life, a healthy diet and lifestyle is important for good health, both now and in the future. In the UK, survey data shows that on average, children's diets have too much saturated fat, too much salt, and too much added sugars. And they are low in fruit and vegetables, low in fibre, and oily fish. And evidence suggests that eating patterns established early on in life will track into later life. Therefore, providing a healthy, balanced diet early on helps give children the best possible start in life. Looking at some of the examples of the recommendations against actual intakes, you can see that for added sugars, the recommendation is no more than 5% of total energy from food and drink should come from added sugars. But children are consuming, on average, about 12% of total food energy from sugars. And then for fibre, the recommendation is 15 grams per day, but children are only consuming 10 grams per day. And then for oily fish, they are only eating about 10% of the recommendation. So the recommended amount is 40 grams a week, and on average they're only eating 14 grams a week. So although the NDNS didn't actually measure salt for this age group, we know that older children are consuming too much salt. And for smaller children, it is of particular concern because their kidneys can't cope with too much salt. So the impact of a poor diet, by eating a poor diet, children can experience a number of health problems. A poor diet can lead to overweight and obesity, and statistics show that around 1 in 5 children is either overweight or obese by the time they start school, age 4 to 5. Also, about a third of 5-year-olds experience tooth decay, and this is typically caused by eating too many sugary foods and drinks too often, and as well as not practicing good dental hygiene. Around 1 in 20 1 to 3-year-olds have low levels of iron in their blood, and this puts them at risk of iron deficiency anemia. And also around 1 in 10 1 to 3-year-olds have low levels of vitamin D in their blood. And the picture is similar for 4 to 10-year-olds. And also constipation is common in childhood, particularly when children are being potty trained around 2 to 3 years. So this slide shows actual intakes of micronutrients rather than the status, which is the levels in the blood. And low intakes can also increase the risk of nutrient deficiencies. So nutrients of particular concern with intakes below the lower reference nutrient intake are vitamin A, iron and zinc, calcium, iodine and selenium. So foods providing these nutrients are particularly important to include in the diet, and we will cover this a bit later on. So what are the energy and nutrient requirements for young children? Well, children have different requirements, and this depends on their age, their gender, body size, rate of growth and level of activity. But young children are naturally active and are experiencing rapid growth, so they need more calories and nutrients relative to their body weight to support normal development. But generally, when they get older, their energy and nutrient needs increase. So healthy children are generally capable of regulating their own appetite, and this provides them with enough energy to match their energy expenditure levels, and this ensures normal growth. Whereas adults, on average, tend to eat similar quantities of food per day, the amount of food young children can vary from day to day and even from meal to meal. This depends on their appetite, which may be bigger during a growth spurt or after an especially active day, and smaller at other times, for example, when they're ill. So it's also important to consider that they have small tummies and eat smaller amounts than older children and adults. So they need small, regular, healthy meals and snacks throughout the day. So what does a healthy diet for young children look like? So it should provide the right amount of nutrients needed for normal growth and development, which they can get from a diet that contains a wide variety of foods. And for a healthy body weight, it needs to provide the right amount of energy. And it helps children establish healthy eating patterns and develop a liking for healthy foods. So if children eat a balanced diet that contains a wide variety of foods, then they should get all the nutrients they need to be healthy. But the exception is for vitamin D, as it's only found in a small number of foods and children may not get enough from sun exposure, especially during the winter months. So as a precaution, all children aged 1 to 4 years are advised to take a vitamin D supplement every day. And then vitamins A and C, the NHS Choices also recommends for growing children who don't eat a varied diet, so may not get enough of these. So, and the Eat Well Guide is the UK's government guide to healthy eating and can help us choose the right balance of food and drinks for a healthy diet. It's based on the 5 main food groups and shows us how much of what we eat should come from each food group. However, it only applies to adults and children over 5. So for the under 2s who are growing and developing quickly, they need more energy and nutrients for their size compared to older children and adults. So some of the advice around the Eat Well Guide does not apply to this age group. For example, children under 2 need to drink whole milk and have full-fat dairy. But from ages 2 to 5, children should be moving towards eating foods lower in fat and higher in fibre, like adults and older children, and in the same proportion shown in the Eat Well plate. But the 5 food groups are still relevant for this age group, so we'll look at these in more detail. So fruit and vegetables contain vitamins A, C and K. They also contain iron and potassium and are an important source of fibre. So children should try and eat a variety of at least 5 different types of fruit and vegetables a day and be introduced to lots of different types from an early age, whether fresh, frozen, canned or dried, so they can enjoy the new textures and flavours. It's a good idea to include some at every meal and snack times, and they can also be added to composite dishes such as soups, curries, stews and pasta sauces. But with dried fruit, such as raisins, it's best to give it to children with meals rather than as a snack, as the sugar they contain can cause tooth decay. The fruit, we know, is especially popular with some children, but some vegetables may be harder for children to accept, but evidence does show that they can learn to like them if they are introduced early and often, with repeated exposure of about up to 10 times before they accept them. So it's worth just keep providing them for children. So fruit and vegetables are important in the diet to set good eating patterns, but there are some common misconceptions. For example, light dried fruit is a healthy snack, and that they are the only foods that are important in young children's diet. But other foods like starchy carbohydrates and good sources of proteins like beans and fish are also important to include, which I'll discuss in the next slide. So potatoes, bread, rice, pasta and other starchy carbohydrates are a good source of energy, B vitamins and fibre. And it's a good idea to provide these at each meal and at some snack times. So some whole grain starchy foods can be included for the under twos. For example, wholemeal bread, pasta and brown rice, as they're a good source of fibre. However, providing only whole grain foods may fill a young child up before they've taken in the energy and nutrients they need, so more whole grain can gradually be introduced from 2 years. The dairy and alternatives, they provide protein, calcium, B vitamins, iodine, phosphorus and potassium. And cheese also provides zinc and vitamin A. So this group includes milk, yogurt, cheese, fromage frais, calcium-fortified milk alternatives such as unsweetened soya, almond and oat drinks. However, children under the age of 5 shouldn't have rice drinks because of the levels of arsenic they may contain. So suitable types of cow's milk will be covered in the drink section later on. But NHS Choices recommends that young children have at least 350 millilitres of milk or 2 portions of dairy foods or alternatives a day. But when providing milk, it's important that children don't drink too much and fill up on milk, as it can make it difficult for them then to get the energy and nutrients they need from other foods. If they fill up on milk, they are more likely to lack iron, which could then lead to iron deficiency anemia. So beans, pulses, fish, eggs, meat and other proteins provide protein. They also provide iron, omega-3s from oily fish, zinc, B vitamins, vitamin D, magnesium and selenium. So young children need about 2 to 3 portions a day of protein foods. Vegetarians will need 3 portions a day. So the Eat Well Guide recommends that we eat more beans and pulses in our diet to be more environmentally sustainable. The fish recommendation is the same for adults, and young children should eat 2 portions of fish a week, one of which should be oily, for example, salmon, sardines, mackerel and trout, and it should be from sustainable sources. However, there are limits on how much oily fish young children should have a week. Boys can have up to 4 portions, but girls should have no more than 2 portions a week. And this is because the low levels of pollutants that oily fish contain can build up in the body and may harm an unborn baby during a future pregnancy. But it's important to remember that children are provided with oily fish because the health benefits are greater than the risks, so as long as they don't eat more than the recommended amounts. So nuts are also a good source of protein if the child isn't allergic, obviously. But children under 5 shouldn't be given whole nuts. They may choke on them. But they can be ground or chopped, or nut butters are also fine. The foods high in fat, salt and free sugars. Foods high in fat, such as biscuits, cakes, sweets, chocolate, fried foods and sugary drinks, are not needed in the diet, so these should be eaten less often and in smaller amounts. But young children do need some high energy foods, so it's good to include such as avocados, whole milk, peanut butter, cheese and oily fish, but they don't need to cut down on the sugars naturally found in fruit and milk. So what should young children be drinking? They should have about 6 to 8 drinks a day of about 120 to 250 millilitres to stay hydrated, but they may need more in hot weather or if they are very active. So water is the best choice and should be offered regularly. Milk and milk alternatives are also good choices. Whole milk can be given from 1 year is up to 2 years, and if children are growing and eating well, then from 2 years they can be given semi-skimmed milk. So skimmed and 1% milk don't contain enough fat, so are not suitable for this age group. And unsweetened calcium-fortified milk alternatives, such as soya, almond and oat drinks, can be given from the age of 1 as part of a healthy, balanced diet. So 100% fruit juice can be given, but it should be well diluted, and it should be limited to meal times only to protect teeth, and no more than 150 ml a day is recommended. The drinks that aren't suitable for young children include tea and coffee and sugary drinks, and also no added sugared drinks, flavoured milks and flavoured waters. The diet is important for health, but so is physical activity, which should be part of daily life. So the over ones who are still learning to walk should be encouraged to be as active as possible, but obviously in a safe and supervised play environment. And time spent not moving should be limited, for example, confined to pushchairs. So then as soon as they start walking, they should do at least 180 minutes, or equivalent of 3 hours, of physical activity a day, which can be spread across the day and include activities such as walking, running, cycling, swimming, and playing in the park all count, as well as lighter activities such as standing up, moving around, rolling, and playing. So children under 5 should not be inactive for long periods, except obviously for when they're asleep. But watching TV, playing computer games, or being strapped into a buggy for long periods are not good for a child's health and development. Just to summarise, it's vital for healthy growth and development, and to help establish healthy eating patterns early on, which can track into later life. It's important to provide good nutrition from a healthy, varied diet, including healthy drinks, and provide plenty of opportunities to be physically active. Just to move on to the answers of the quiz. The young children should have whole grain varieties of starchy foods. So as we covered this, no, it's not a good idea to give only whole grain starchy foods to children under the age of 2. But after the age of 2, more whole grain foods can gradually be introduced. So there are no limits on how much oily fish young children can consume. So yes, there are limits. So boys can have up to 4 portions, but girls should have no more than 2 portions a week. So children should have a sugar-free diet. Well, the recommendation for total added sugars is less than 5% of total food energy. So foods containing added sugars should be limited, but they don't need to cut down on the sugars naturally found in fruit and milk. So dried fruit is a healthy snack and can be eaten any time of the day. So dried fruit shouldn't be given as a snack. It can count towards a 5 a day, but it should be offered at meal times only to protect teeth. I hope you enjoyed the talk today. Here are some links for some useful resources for the early years, and you'll also find lots of information on healthy eating on our website. So thank you for listening. Bye-bye.